George was 78 when an unexpected event changed his routine. The porch step, which seemed harmless, turned into a cruel obstacle. The fall came fast, without warning, leaving marks on his body and on his pride. The physical impact was tough, but the deeper wound appeared in his mind. For the first time, George faced the feeling that he was losing control over his own life. At the hospital, tests showed the road to recovery would be long. The doctor explained calmly, "George, your body can get back up, but your mind needs to believe it. Without that, every step will be pointless." He listened in silence, absorbing every word. It was as if an invisible door had opened before him. Healing the bones wasn't enough, he also needed to take care of the fear, the anxiety, and the confidence, all of which had already been shaken. If you're over 60 and believe there's still a lot of life ahead, this channel is for you. Stories like this one show that strength and hope exist in every stage of life. The channel is new, so go ahead and subscribe, leave a like, and help us keep creating content that inspires and strengthens your journey. That night, lying in the white hospital room, George realized how the mind can be both medicine and prison. Thoughts of incapacity appeared like shadows, trying to convince him that independence was now in the past. Then he remembered the drawing his grandson Ethan had given him, a colorful piece of paper with the words, "Grandpa, hero." George looked at that gift and thought, if I'm still a hero to him, I can't let my mind reduce me to a prisoner of fear. What had seemed like just physical rehab turned out to be an even deeper challenge. George discovered a secret so obvious, yet so often forgotten: taking care of mental health was the key to helping the body stand back up. He understood that muscles only respond when the mind is clear, confident, and steady. Nurse Linda, while changing his bandage, shared her own experience. "My mom is 80. She fell, but she never gave up because she learned to train not just her body, but her thoughts too. Mental health is the foundation of recovery." George was intrigued. Until then, he'd never stopped to consider that mental clarity could directly affect the strength in his legs. It was as if every thought was an order the body obeyed. Suddenly, the fall no longer seemed like just an accident. It was also a warning. To move forward, he'd need to align mind and body. And it was there, in that hospital, that he decided to begin rehab not just as a patient, but as a student of a new way of living. Back at home, George still carried bruises and an uncomfortable sense of vulnerability. But he was determined not to let fear define his future. In his routine of simple exercises, he started including moments of breathing and focus. He found that anxiety lessened when he allowed himself to think only about the next step, without anticipating falls that might never come. Each mental practice became fuel for his body. Margaret, his 79-year-old neighbor, reinforced this idea when she visited. She herself had suffered a serious fall and had to relearn how to walk. According to her, the secret wasn't just in the cane or the physical therapy, but in keeping the mind alive with confidence. "I looked at myself in the mirror and repeated, 'I still can, I still will.' It was my mind that taught my body to obey," she said with conviction. George absorbed those words like someone finding a map in the middle of a maze. But the story that would affect him the most came from an unexpected friend, showing how the mind can turn even pain into triumph. Leonard, 74, had gone through something similar. For weeks, he practiced simple techniques taught by his physical therapist. He learned to touch the ground with awareness, first the heel, then the arch, finally the toes. His body gained strength, but the most surprising thing was realizing that his mind had become his greatest ally. "Before, I only thought about falling. Now, I think about moving forward. That's where the difference lies," he said. That sentence stuck with George like a revelation. It was at that moment he understood, mental health wasn't just a detail in the process, it was the central piece. Without focus, confidence, and clarity, no technique would work. Each day, his body regained a little more balance, but it was mental training that kept him standing in the face of uncertainty. At night, George wrote in his notebook, "The mind leads, the body follows." He realized this lesson wasn't just for walking, it was for living. The fall stopped being just a painful memory and became a call to care for what truly supported his steps, the invisible strength that rises from within the mind. George stuck to his routine without wavering. Every morning, even before starting the exercises recommended by his physical therapist, he set aside a few minutes just to breathe and organize his thoughts. He discovered that when his mind woke up calm, his body responded better. Each breath became a reminder, moving muscles wasn't enough, he had to prepare his awareness. That way, what once seemed like simple breathing turned into a powerful ritual of rebuilding. One day, during a session, the physical therapist said something that stuck with him: "Your body only goes as far as your mind allows. If you believe the next step is safe, your muscles will follow that command." George was surprised. He'd always believed physical strength was the only key to staying upright, but now he saw the brain was running the quiet show of balance. He decided to test it. He fixed his gaze a few feet ahead, remembered the rule, clear mind, body follows, and took a step. The movement was steady. Then another, with less hesitation. For the first time, he felt confidence sprouting, not in his feet, but inside his mind. That progress caught Margaret's attention, who sometimes joined him for short walks in the backyard. She smiled and said, "You're not just walking, George. You're relearning how to believe in yourself." That simple sentence moved him more than any medical test ever had. George realized that with every exercise, his body was merely obeying something greater, the mental decision to keep going. But the real test would come on an ordinary day, when an unexpected detail put everything he'd been training to the test. On a Sunday morning, Ethan insisted his grandfather come with him to the corner of the street, just to watch the neighbors flying kites. George hesitated, but agreed. Walking outside the house was still a challenge. The fear of tripping on the curb pulsed in his mind. He took a deep breath, remembered the guidance, and started walking. The first few meters were tough, but with every step he silently repeated, "Confidence creates balance." The street felt long, curious glances followed him, but George kept going. When they arrived, Ethan enthusiastically lifted the kite into the air, and as George watched it rise, he felt that flight was his too. It wasn't just a walk, it was a symbol of liberation. Back home, the physical therapist, who'd been watching from a distance, remarked, "You overcame the ground and you overcame fear. That's mental health in action." George grasped the depth of those words. The fall hadn't defeated him. What could defeat him was surrendering to a mind consumed by insecurity. That understanding opened a new horizon. He didn't just need to rehabilitate, he needed to reinvent how he saw life after 60. What George didn't yet realize was that an unexpected revelation would turn this recovery into something far bigger than he'd ever imagined. During a casual conversation, Linda mentioned that her mother, after a similar fall, had started leading a group of seniors in the community, teaching exercises for both mental and physical strength. That story planted a seed. George, who until then had focused only on himself, began to wonder if he, too, could inspire others. After all, it wasn't just about walking without a cane, it was about proving that after 60, 70, or even 80, there's still room for new achievements. That night, while writing in his notebook, George jotted down a different kind of sentence: "A healthy mind creates a future, even when the body grows old." He closed his eyes and let that idea spread like a lit flame. Yes, his body was healing, but it was his mental health that kept him standing, turning every step into victory and every memory into a lesson. The day of the big test arrived without George planning for it. The neighborhood had organized a gathering for seniors at the community center, with light music, conversations, and small activities. Ethan insisted his grandfather go, and George, still unsure, agreed. The idea of walking through a room full of people intimidated him, but it also represented a chance to prove to himself how far he'd come. When he walked into the hall, curious eyes turned toward him. Many knew about his fall, and some even whispered about what his new life of limitations would look like. George took a deep breath, lifted his head, and kept moving forward. At first, he stayed close to the wall, but soon realized that didn't match what he'd been training for. He decided to cross the room. Each step seemed to carry not just the weight of his body, but also the silent judgment of those watching. Still, his mental confidence guided him. One of the organizers announced a simple activity: pair up and walk in a circle, following the rhythm of a gentle song. Margaret stepped closer, reached out her hand, and said, "Are you ready to dance with life again?" George hesitated, but accepted the invitation. As he took his first steps in time with the music, he felt something different, not just his body obeying, but his mind celebrating. It was at that moment an unexpected revelation changed everything, right in front of everyone in the room. In the middle of the activity, Ethan ran up to his grandfather, phone in hand. He showed him a live video being streamed to the family, who were watching the scene in real time. His children, who had doubted George's ability to live independently again, now saw him not just walking, but radiating confidence. The silence in the hall gave way to spontaneous applause. George, deeply moved, felt every pessimistic whisper crushed in just a few minutes. What everyone had called a limitation was, right there, turning into proof of triumph. After the gathering, Linda approached him with tears in her eyes. "George, today you didn't just get back on your feet, you gave hope to all of us. My mom always said a healthy mind is a lighthouse. Today, you lit up this whole place." George was speechless. He hadn't planned to be an inspiration, but he realized his quiet effort had become a powerful testimony. What seemed like just a recovery story held one final lesson, the most unexpected of all. That night, back at home, George opened his notebook and wrote, "My fall was only a beginning." As he wrote, a memory struck him. Before the accident, he had lived repetitive days, stuck in routine, believing there was nothing new left to experience. Paradoxically, the fall that seemed like an ending had opened the door to new beginnings he would never have dared to seek. He discovered that while the body ages, the mind, when fed with purpose, can bloom at any age. The real surprise wasn't that he could walk again without a cane. It was the realization that he had recovered something far greater, the ability to inspire, to lead, to show that growing older is more than accumulating years, it's learning to turn falls into stepping stones. George ended the day not as a victim of an accident, but as the main character in a story that restored faith to everyone around him. As he turned off the light, he thought about the future. He knew his body might face new challenges, but he was also certain his mind, now strengthened, would be his greatest ally. The true lesson was clear: after 60, 70, or 80, it's not just about living longer, but living better, with courage, hope, and a heart willing to begin again whenever necessary. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone special and leave a like. This channel is new, so please subscribe and help us keep creating content that strengthens and inspires your life. And get ready, the next video might surprise you even more.